morning. We will pay attention to the creditor's reconciliation statement today. Before we start with this question, I just want to explain the basic principles of this creditor's ledger and creditor's reconciliation so that you can understand how you should do it. Now remember, in the creditor's ledger is in our books. So we have an account for every creditor that we buy from on credit. In their books, they see us as a debtor. So in our books, they are a liability, and the liability increases on the credit side and decreases on the debit side. In their books, they see us as an asset because they're going to receive money from us in the future. So it means in their books, they will treat it differently. Because it's an asset, it will increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. So in our books, any purchases will be shown on the credit side to increase our debt. In their books, all the sales to us will increase on the debit side. When we make payments or we return goods to them, we will debit their account to show that we owe less money. When they receive money or there's returns, they have to decrease our account on the credit side. This indicates that everything that we record on the credit side, they will record on the debit side. And what we record on the debit side, they will record on the credit side. Okay, so what's very important when you do these questions, you must realize that if they ask you to do the creditor's reconciliation statement, that creditor's reconciliation statement is basically the way that the creditor will do it in their books. So it means that in this creditor's reconciliation statement, you will do it as the creditor will do it in their book. So it's the opposite of what we are doing. Okay, so if we look at the information that they've given to us, we first of all have to tick off and see which figures are the same. So I'll always check your opening balance first of all to determine if we started with the same balance, because there's a possibility that we could have paid on the 30th of September and we recorded it, but they haven't recorded it, so our opening balances will not be the same. And then we just go and we tick off all the amounts that's the same. Remember, they will always be on the opposite side. Now here I see something. There's 182 on the debit side, and here's also 182. So it tells me immediately that there's a mistake somewhere because both of them can't be on the same side. Okay, then we have the 520. We've got a 663 here, but there's no 663, and the 6007 as well. Here is a 25, and then we see there's a mistake again because both books have 3230 on the credit side, so it means that we have to correct those mistakes. And then there's a payment for 280 and 20 that doesn't appear there, so it means they will give us information about that in the additional information. So first of all, I must decide how will I do this work. So to prevent mistakes, look at your information here. We are ABC traders, so that is our books. And we open an account in the creditor's ledger. They are Olivetti wholesalers. So that means this is the books of Olivetti wholesalers. And that means everything that they have to do where they made a mistake and they have to correct it, or they left out an entry, we will record it in the creditors reconciliation as they would do it in their books. Now, it's very important that you realize who we are and who they are, because that is the place where most of you make the mistakes when you start reading this additional information. Then you're not 100% sure where it should be recorded. Okay, the first one, invoice 874, was incorrectly recorded on the statement of account of ABC. Okay, so if I go and look at 874, there we have it. And you can see that we don't have an 874 in our books. So we don't have it. It's on the statement of account, and Olivetti wholesalers made this mistake. So it means they recorded this on the debit side, the 663, and they now have to correct it to show that it's not supposed to be there. 874, so it's for the 663 rand. Okay, so what will we do with that 663? Was incorrectly recorded on ABC Traders, so it means that we didn't buy it, so it means this must be taken out of the books of the ABC. Now here. Okay, so I will show here on the credit side, they have to remove that 663 on the debit side to the credit side, and it will be invoice 874 corrected. Okay, then I've done something with that one. EFT on 26 October was for a payment to Olympic wholesalers. We are doing the books of Olivetti wholesalers. So that means that payment on the 26th was not supposed to be in our books. So these two entries must now be removed from our creditors ledger, and we have to transfer that then to the credit side to take it out of the books. So I will show, I'm going to credit the incorrect EFT and the amount of that EFT is 2,000, and I will credit the discount of 200 rand. Okay, then I've recorded those two entries. Then the next one, the payment on the 28th of October was made to Olivetti. So we made a payment of 14,000. They haven't recorded it, and the reason why they haven't recorded it, if you look at the dates, they closed their statement on the 23rd, and we had it up to the 28th. So they will carry on with their statement now, and they will record it in the next one. So if we look at this statement, it's 14,000. So they will have to show that we paid 14,000. That will reduce our debt, and that is an outstanding deposit that they still have to record. Okay, then amount on receipt 113 on the statement of account was not paid by ABC. Now if you look at this receipt 113, you see that we don't have it in our books. We say that we didn't pay it, so they made a mistake, so they must take it out of their books on the debit side. Okay, Olivetti treated credit note 52 as an invoice. Now, credit note 52 is the one that we showed on the debit side, the 182. That is correct because we want to reduce our creditor. They recorded that 182 on the debit side because they treated it as an invoice. So it means that there's a mistake. They will first have to credit this account with 182 so that they can remove that mistake. But then we want to show that their account must be decreased, so we will have to do it a second time. So when we record this, remember when the amount is written on the wrong side of the account, you will always record it double because you first have to cancel the mistake so that there's not entry, and then you have to record the entry to show that the account must be decreased with 132. You can show it as two entries and say incorrect invoice and then, for instance, credit note, or you can just add the two amounts together and indicate that you will decrease this account with 364. Okay, then ABC Traders did not record an entry for invoice 209, and if we look on the statement, we see that there's an invoice 209. We don't have it in our books, so this is an entry that we were still supposed to record. So I have to go and show it now on the credit side of my books to indicate that we owe more money because we didn't record that invoice. Okay, invoice 206 was received from Olympic Wholesalers. And if we look at invoice 206, it's that one there, was from Olympic. We are busy with the books of Olivetti, so it means that 8620 should not be on this account, so I must take it out on the debit side. Okay, then Olivetti Wholesalers treated invoice 1023 as a credit note. So invoice 1023 we showed on the credit side. That's correct because our debt increases when we buy goods. They showed it on the credit side, indicating that we owe them less money. This must be corrected on the debit side. First of all, to remove that entry that's incorrect, and then we have to debit it again to indicate that we want to show that the account must increase with 3230. And we will debit incorrect invoice 1023 with the amount 6460. So to get that 6460, we added the two figures together. You could also indicate here debit incorrect invoice and then debit credit note, so that you can see that both of them must go to the debit side. Okay, Olivetti Wholesalers treated invoice 1023, so we've done that one. Now, after we've done everything, I check all my figures in my books and in their books, just to ensure that there's nothing that was not done. What can happen quite often is that we can make payments and discounts and receive invoices after the 23rd and we recorded it immediately in our books, then they don't have to give you a sentence to tell you that's what happened. You have to look at the date and realize that those entries are after the 23rd, so it means that I must put it into the statement of account. Now what we are doing is we want to carry on from the place where we stopped in our creditors ledger to show if we do the additional entries, will we get the same balance as the one on the creditors reconciliation. So that is my opening balance that I will start with is 1563. Okay, now this is a creditor that increases on the credit side, so the 2000 must be added. Then the outstanding balance is 3563. The 200 must be added, 3763. And the 6700 must be added. And now we owe 10,463. And then after this incorrect invoice was corrected, we have to subtract that from the figure, and that will give me 1843. So that is my closing balance after I've done the additional entries. In the bank statement, you will also start with a balance where they stopped, and that means that statement balance is on the debit side 10,110. Then, just as we did in bank reconciliation, we look at this balance 1563. This is a creditor, so it means that that balance must go on the credit side. And I will show the balance on the credit side here, 1843. So it's that balance that we had there that we've corrected, and this balance is now 1843. And I show that that's the credit balance in creditors ledger. And if I corrected all the mistakes and did entries for the omissions, it means that these two totals should be the same. So if I add it up, the debit side is 16870, and if I add up the credit side, it also gives me 16870. So what's very important when you do the creditors reconciliation, it's the basic principles that we use when we do bank reconciliation. You must read very carefully where the mistake was made, and that's why I say you must determine what is their name so that we know ABC is our name and their name is then Olivetti Wholesalers, so that we know our name ABC, their name Olivetti, that we know how to record it. So anything that Olivetti must record, you will indicate in the creditors reconciliation statement. And then what's very important is that you must remember that entries that we record on the credit side, they will record on the debit side, because in their books it's an asset, and the asset increases on the debit side and decreases on the credit side. If you've done this question in exam paper and you don't get the same answer at the end, just leave it and carry on with the next question, because it's possible that you left one entry out, that you will lose 1 mark or 2 marks. But if you try and search for the problem, you waste so much time that you don't finish another question.